Hey there, welcome back to Skill 5, Graphing in the Coordinate Plane. This is our last video in our Pre-Skills Bootcamp. So we're going to go ahead and continue with learning how to plot points in the coordinate plane using the same colors to kind of color code from our last video. So I'm going to go ahead and start by just highlighting my x-axis in blue, which is what we did last video, and labeling the positive and negative sides just to kind of help us think through it. So this is my positive side, this is my negative side of my x-axis, and then going through and doing the same thing for my y-axis. We used kind of orange, and then labeling that the positive side is above the origin and the negative side is below. All right, we're going to just kind of walk through our steps here for plotting points, and then we'll go through some examples. So step one is always to start at the origin. So remember, the origin is this point right here where our x and y axis meet. The coordinate is 0, 0, and we're always going to be starting from there. Okay, going on to step two, it says first we're going to move along the x-axis. So I'm going to color coordinate that same. If it's positive, we're going to move to the right. If it's negative, we're going to move to the left. Okay, that is always our second step. So start at the origin, then move left and right. Then we move on to step three, which is to follow the y-axis. So again, if it's positive, we move up. If it's negative, we move down. And once we've done both of those actions, then we mark our final point. So let's go ahead and look at that really quickly here with the first example. So I'm going to color coordinate my actual coordinates. So I have an x value of positive 4 and a y value of positive 5. So just like in our last video, we talked about if both of my coordinates are positive, we should end up in quadrant 1. So I know that if I've done this correctly, I should be somewhere in this first quadrant. So let's go ahead and kind of take time to kind of work this out. If I have a positive 4, that means I'm moving to the right, because remember my x-axis always moves left or right. And then when I think about my y value, I have this positive 5. And since it's positive, that means we're going to be moving up. So now if I put both of those together, I start at the origin, I move 4 to the right and 5 up. That puts me in quadrant 1 like we were expecting, and I can label that point A. All right, let's try our next one. I've got an x value of negative 5 and a y value of positive 3. So if we break that down a little bit more, I've got a negative 5 for x. So x moves left and right. Since it's a negative, I'm going to move to the left. And then for my y value, it's a positive 3 again. So I'm going to be moving up. I guess I reverse those, but you're going to be moving up 3. So thinking about our vocabulary, this should put us in quadrant 2. When I move left and up, that gets us into quadrant 2. So let's plot that point. Starting at the origin, I'm going to go left 5 and then up 3 before I put my point. And that should put us right here. We will call that point B in quadrant 2. All right, next point. We've got negative 2 for x. So again, we're going to be moving left, and a negative 4 for y. So if we break that down even more, negative 2, x is always left or right, negatives moved to the left. Y is a negative 4. So a negative y is below the origin, which means you're moving down. And if we put those two together, starting at the origin, you go left 2, down 4. You're going to be right here, and this would be quadrant 3, where both of our x-axis and our y-axis are negative. All right, last one. Let's get our colors. This time my x is 0, so this is kind of a special case, and our y is positive 5. So I'm going to actually look at our positive 5 first for our y, because that's something we've already been doing. So when I have a positive 5 for y, it means it's above the origin, so we're going up. For x, though, when I have this 0, I'm going to make a little note here, that's telling me normally I move left or right. Well, when I have 0, that means do not move left or right. You're not going anywhere horizontally. Okay, and there's actually a note over here about these specifically. So if I look here, I have 0 and then a number. That looks like this guy, 0 and then a number. And that tells me that when I plot this point, I should be on the y-axis. So let's verify that we are going to do this correctly. Start at the origin. I don't go left or right. I just move up 5. We're going to call this D. And just like we thought, we're going to be on the y-axis. Okay? So I hope that the color coordinating and kind of breaking it down by number helped. Let's take a look down below at your practice. What shape am I? Plot the points from the table below on the graph. Connect the points in order to create a familiar shape, then unscramble the letters inside the design to match the name of your shape. Record the name of the shape in the second table and list only the coordinates needed to spell the name of the shape. So that last part, what it's telling you is you have all these spaces here. If you don't need all 6 spaces, don't use all 6 spaces. Okay? Let's take a look at what you're actually doing now. So we're going to start by plotting this point, -4, 2. So let's go through and set it up the same. Like build yourself some tools, or use your tools to help you. So we've got our x-axis, our y-axis, and now we're going to go in and color our points. So this is my x, and if you want to color them all right away, just so you don't forget, color them all. Do the same thing with your y's. Okay, and you would keep going, and then let's plot some points. So starting at the origin, negative for my x-axis means I move backwards 4, then up 2, and here's my first point. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. -1 up 2, so -1 for x, backwards, and then +2 means move up. Here's my next point. Okay, then it is asking us to connect them in order. So I'm going to connect this guy to that one. And I would keep going until I get to the end. And in fact, I'm even going to connect this last point back to this point. So once you do that, you should get a shape that looks familiar. You'll spell out the name of the shape here, and then you will list your coordinates. So as always, refer back to your notes if you get stuck. Ask questions if you need help, and good luck. You made it to the end of the boot camp.